Hello, my name is Christopher Renstrom, and I'm the weekly horoscope columnist here on Astrology Hub. And this time I wanted to talk to you about the Chinese Lunar New Year taking place on January 29th. Now, the Chinese zodiac is very different than the Western zodiac that we are all familiar with. For instance, our signs are Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces. These are the constellations that form the ecliptic, in which the planets that move across the sky move in front of these signs. So in other words, the ecliptic is a path that the sun and the moon follow across the sky from their rising to their setting. The other planets that follow with them are Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn. So in astrology, the way that we work out a year is that the sun moves from sign to sign. It moves through every one of the 12 signs, which are associated to the 12 months of the year. And so it's the sun moving in and out of a sign that we use to tell time, and we also use in Western astrology. In Chinese astrology, the architecture is altogether different. The ecliptic is not used. In fact, in Chinese astrology, what's used is the North Star, the Big Dipper, which is located in the constellation of Ursa Major. And so it's the constellations that move around the North Pole that are used in Chinese astrology. But astrology is not the same thing as a zodiac. Astrology is going to be talking about the movement of the sun and moon and planets through the sky and the aspects that these planets make with one another. But the zodiac describes the band of animals that are being referenced. And as I said before, in Western astrology, we have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, etc. These are our zodiac signs. But in Chinese astrology, or rather, really to be more specific, Chinese zodiac, the animals are quite different. But before we get into the animals that comprise the Chinese zodiac, let's also point out another difference. Unlike most calendars, the Chinese calendar does not count years in infinite sequence. In other words, it's not like this is year 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way through 2025. That's not the way that the Chinese calendar is set up. Instead, years in the Chinese calendar have names that are repeated every 60 years. These correspond to the 5 repeats of the Chinese zodiac cycle of 12 animals. So these 12 animals will repeat every 5 years. And basically, the way that it's remembered that these animals repeat is according to the element. So the 12 zodiac signs, or the zodiac animals that are used in the Chinese zodiac, will repeat 5 times, and each time that they repeat will correspond to one of the Chinese elements. And for the Chinese zodiac, the elements are wood, fire, earth, metal, and water. So that's a different way of thinking of things, all right? So in the West, where we're just sort of like, okay, we're like in 2021, and it's followed by 2022, 2023, 2024, 2025, etc. With the Chinese zodiac, it's, we're in the year of the rat, which is followed by the year of the ox, the year of the tiger, the year of the hare or the rabbit, etc. Okay, so each year is a zodiac sign. One could almost say that the energy of the zodiac sign rules for that year. So this has nothing to do with constellations. This has nothing to do with stars that you can find in the sky and say, oh, that's the star of the rat. Has nothing to do with that at all. Indeed, the Chinese zodiac consists of 12 animals that first appeared in the Zhongguo period, which was 5th century BCE. The Chinese zodiac became a popular way to determine a person's birth year. Each of the animals stands for a year in a 12-year cycle. Now, this also extended itself so that each of the animals stood for a day in a 12-day cycle, and each of the animals stood for every 2 hours in a 24-hour cycle. So you could be born in the year of the ox, and you could be born on the day of the rooster, and you could be born in the hour of the rat. Okay, that sort of sounds like it's approximating Western astrology, but it's not. With the Chinese zodiac, what's going on here is counting. It's the counting the hours, the counting the days, the counting of the years. And what helped people keep count was the association with a zodiacal animal. Now, the names of the 12 animals of the Chinese zodiac as arranged in clockwise sequence, and remember, this has nothing to do with the time of year, all right? So these characters are the rat, ox, tiger, hare, dragon, snake. That's the year that we're entering into right now, followed by the horse, ram, monkey, rooster, dog, and boar. In Chinese cosmology, these symbols correspond to the 12 divisions of the celestial equator known as the earthly branches, Dija, and each of which also corresponds to a direction. Rat is associated to the north, ox is north-northeast, tiger is east-northeast. This is how they're dividing the equator. The hare is the east, the dragon is the east-southeast, snake is south-southeast, horse is south, ram is south-southwest, monkey is west-southwest, rooster west, dog west-northwest, and the boar is west-northwest. And then you repeat. Now, why the number 12? All right. We're used to thinking of the number 12 in terms of the 12 months of the year, and the sun passes through every one of the 12 zodiac signs. But what's going on here is that each zodiac sign in the Chinese zodiac is associated to an entire year. We're used to it being associated to a month. With the Chinese zodiac, it's an entire year. So again, I ask you, why the number 12? The number 12 is associated to Jupiter, the planet that is associated to good luck and good fortune and higher purpose. So that's why when, for instance, we say we're entering into the year of the snake, everyone who was born in a year that was ruled by the Chinese zodiac sign, the snake, is going to experience good fortune and higher purpose and all of those things that are associated to the planet Jupiter. This isn't based on the planet Jupiter, because the Jupiter, for instance, can change signs, at any old point in the year. I mean, this year, I think, for instance, it changes signs in the month of June. And that's not going to correspond with the Chinese New Year that begins in late January and February, all right? But when you're counting 12 years, we know in Western astrology that it takes Jupiter 12 years to go around all 12 signs as we know it. The Chinese understanding is that it takes Jupiter 12 years to come back to where it began its orbit, back to the time when you began clocking Jupiter. But again, Jupiter is the model for counting the years, but it has nothing to do with the movement of Jupiter through the nighttime sky. So as you may recall, 2024 was the year of the dragon, and 2025 is going to be the year of the snake, because the snake follows the dragon. And indeed, the snake was often referred to in Chinese folklore as being the small dragon or the mini dragon. And of course, what that means is that people born in the year of the snake are going to be favored this year. Now, the snake is a yin sign, meaning a feminine sign. It's of the earth, all right? Now, the characteristics of people born under the zodiac sign of the snake is that they are enigmatic and hard to read. There's a sort of emotional reserve about them that makes them a little bit mysterious and hard to figure out. They're endowed with an inborn wisdom and a natural intuition, and even a psychic or a mystical capability. People born under the snake are graceful and soft-spoken, and they enjoy the finer things in life. They enjoy their food, they enjoy their wine, they enjoy lovely and beautiful things, and they always, always want to look good. People born in the year of the snake are also very careful about what they say. One might almost say calculated. The way that they treat words is with great respect and great reverence. And so they will choose their words carefully. And the expectation is that other people are going to choose their words carefully as well. So people born in the year of the snake are literally going to take you at your word. People born in the year of the snake are also what I call scary ambitious. Now, what I mean by that isn't that they're like crazy ambitious and they're just coveting positions of power and they have to rule the world and rule the universe or anything like that. No, what it is like the snake, they target specifically what it is that they are after, and they are relentless in their pursuit. But they're not going to charge ahead or show their hand. They're going to slither. They're going to climb. They're going to wrap around. They're going to camouflage, and they're going to disguise. So if they have to wait in order to get something that they want, no problem. They will wait. They will wait until their prey has become complacent, tired, or perhaps even gone to sleep. So there's an observing quality to people born in the year of the snake, and there's also a very pinpointed, targeted quality to people born in the year of the snake. But people born in the year of the snake also experience extremes in their life, wild pendulum swings between the sacred and the profane, or between piety and hedonism. And that's because, like the Chinese zodiac sign of the dragon, people born in the year of the snake have a very powerful karmic purpose. It's almost as if they're trying to live all of their lives in one life. This feeling that time is running out, but it can also be this feeling like I'm on the last round of my past life circuit here. And instead of coming back as this or that or another thing, I want to cram it all into this life. Whatever my life lessons are, whatever my realizations are, whatever my past patterns that I need to get over are, I want to get through it all in one life. And so this is why people born in the year of the snake will have such extremes, an extreme where they, get rid of anything that's tempting or negative in their life, or extremes where they're living this completely wild and crazy life where they're out of control for a period of time. It's more than experiential. It's more like I want to live all of these past lives at once so I don't have to come back again. This is what gives people born in the year of the snake both an urgency and a purpose. The urgency they know about. They know that they have to get everything done and right this time around. The purpose they don't always know about. It's not pre-planned in that way. Snake thinking is much more strategic and it's more cerebral, but it is purposeful. So there is this very deep inner sense that the things that I'm living in my life right now are meant to be lived in order to live out my karma. And as I said before, not have to incarnate again. So this is why snake people, for lack of a better word, their lives will end either on an up note, a note of victory and triumph, or it will be a wipeout. It will be a down note. So their lives are really the sum of all of the actions that are taking place. Simply put, snake people are destined to pay their dues all in this one life. So this is what gives them this kind of concentrated energy. Other attributes is that snake people have a hard time forgiving someone who has done them wrong, and they do have a vengeful side. They won't strike right away. As I said, they will lay in wait, and they will very cleverly calculate the downfall and the demise of their nemesis. But there are two more ideas that I want to connect with the character of people born in the year of the snake, or really what the snake symbolizes. The first is the sloughing off of the old skin. This is something that has been observed since ancient times about snakes. It's what made them so sacred in so many different societies. And this is why the snake was always associated with renewal and with transformation. The second thing, which may not be as well known, is the snake's association with healing. Okay, we actually know the snake from the medical symbol of the cane or the caduceus. Actually, it's the Asclepius. It's a staff with the snake that is wrapped around it. This is connected to the Hippocratic Oath. And so the snake is associated to the idea of medicine and healing. And what that comes from is the old Asclepian axiom, the wounder heals. So here we have the snake symbolizing renewal and transformation, as well as the snake symbolizing healing, physically and psychologically, and also through love and sacrifice. And when we're talking about love and sacrifice, one can't help but be put in mind of the Chinese legend of the white snake.
Hey there, astrology lover. If you're enjoying this episode, you're not going to want to miss Christopher's newly released masterclass called Quincunx's Yods, aka the Finger of God, Interpreting Fated Friction. Join Christopher as he helps you pull back the curtain on these challenging aspects, helping you identify them, interpret them, and integrate them into your life. You'll also get Christopher's by-sign breakdown for how to interpret all possible quincunx relationships, as well as every zodiac sign at the apex of a yod or finger of God. Your registration includes lifetime access to the class, along with Christopher's teaching materials in video, audio, and transcript formats. This class was a popular Inner Circle exclusive, and we're releasing it to our podcast community for the first time ever. In celebration of this, you can lock in a 20% discount if you register for the class by January 31st, 2025. Catch all the details at astrologyhub.com/yod. We'll also drop that link in the show notes. And now, back to the episode.
Now, the legend of the white snake, which is also known as Madam White Snake, is an old Chinese folk tale that dates back to the Tang Dynasty, which is 618 to 907. Centuries ago, on Omei Mountain, there once lived a white snake and a green snake. Now, Omei Mountain is a very special mountain because it is the largest of the 4 sacred Buddhist mountains in China. And these two snakes were immortal and possessed supernatural powers as a result of years and years of religious practice. But before they could reach enlightenment, the mother goddess Nuwa told the white snake that she had an unfulfilled destiny in the human world. Nuwa, the mender of heaven and the mother of the entire human race, had the most exquisite, the most serene, the most beautiful face and the body of a serpent. Nuwa is the goddess of nature, order, fertility, and marriage. And so the snakes took on human form and entered our world on the shore of West Lake in Hangzhou. Now the white snake called herself Bai Suchen, which means white, pure, loyal. And the green snake called herself Xiao Xian, which means little green. Now one day, these two sisters were walking on the broken bridge that spanned the lake and were admiring the scenery when suddenly there was a rainstorm. The ladies took shelter under a willow tree where they met a very handsome man with an umbrella under his arm. His name was Shushan, and he was an herbalist, and he was on his way home after piously sweeping his ancestors' graves. Bai immediately fell in love with Sushen, and Sushen, looking into her beautiful eyes, immediately fell in love with Bai. Shushen lent the sisters his umbrella and quickly sent for a boat to take the sisters home. And Bai told him to come to their house the next day to retrieve his umbrella. And he did. Now, what Shushan didn't know was that 1,000 years before, Bai was a tiny little white snake that lived in the grasses of the West Lake. One day, a group of boys captured her and put her in a basket with a lid, and they tormented her, and they were threatening to kill her. And then they thought, why not? That's a great idea. Let's kill her and slit her in two for sport. And they were on the verge of doing this when another boy called out to them. He called out to them and distracted the boys. And in their distraction, he grabbed the basket with its lid and he ran. He ran much faster than the group of boys did until he reached a place where he felt that it was far enough away and safe and secure. And then he opened up the lid and he let the little white snake, he let Bai out, where she went back down into the grasses of the West Lake. Bai vowed that one day she would find that boy again and that she would thank him. And, as fate would have it, she recognized in the eyes of Shushan that he was the reincarnation of that boy who had saved her so many years ago. So it made perfect sense when Shushan showed up at the sister's house the following day to retrieve his umbrella that they would have conversation over tea and that Bai would propose marriage. Now, Shushan was a little bit shocked by this. Not really shocked. He was more surprised by this. But Bai was so alluring. She was so gorgeous. She shimmered with an unearthly glamour that Shushan couldn't help but say yes. And Shushan was also moved by this deep and abiding feeling that he knew her from someplace, that he had seen her someplace before. Well, in any case, it made perfect sense, and Shushan immediately agreed to become Bai's husband. And under the direction of Bai's sister Xiaoxian, they agreed to worship heaven and earth and were joined in marriage. They soon opened their own herbal medicine shop called the Blessed and Peace Medical Hall. Now here I'd like to make a quick little interruption in the story, if I could, and tell you a little bit about the Greek god Asclepius. Asclepius was the son of Apollo, the god of healing, and Asclepius, when he was an infant child, was given to Chiron, the wounded healer, for instruction in the healing arts. So Asclepius was a very famous healer in ancient Greece, and his totem was the snake. It was Asclepius who walked with a staff, and circled around that staff was a snake. Since antiquity, the snake has been regarded as a totem of rebirth. Dating back to Asclepius, the Greek god of medicine, who carried a snake-entwined staff with him, which was called the Asclepian, the snake has been symbolic of both medicine and toxology. The cult of Asclepius was one of the most enduring of classical antiquity. Hundreds of shrines dotted Italy, Greece, the Eastern Mediterranean, and North Africa. The origin of the cult was thought to be at Epidaurus, from which it spread to new sites by the transport of the sacred serpents. Indeed, the Asclepian snake was described as watchful, gentle, and endowed with perennial youth. Through the shedding of its skin, hence its association with renewal and healing. At times, Asclepius himself assumed the form of the snake. Now, in the years 295 and 293 BC, there was a terrible plague in Rome, where the smell of burning corpses filled the air. Messengers were sent to the oracle at Delphi, who instructed the Romans to call upon Apollo's son, Asclepius. Now, they had never heard of Asclepius before, but the oracle at Delphi insisted Asclepius is the god you want to call upon. Now, there was divided opinion about this among the Romans. Part of them were like, well, Asclepius sounds like he's good. That's what the Oracle of Delphi is saying to summon. And other Romans were like, who's this Asclepius? I've never heard of him before. We have a major plague that's going on in Rome. We can't have some wannabe Apollo. We need the real thing. We need the real God. So opinion was divided. until Asclepius appeared to the Roman politician Quintus Ogolinus in a dream. And Asclepius told him that he would send a sacred snake to his plague-ridden city and that the city would be cured. So everyone at the docks where the ship was waiting to sail back to Rome was awaiting the appearance of this snake, the sacred snake. And as you might imagine, they were expecting a snake to be brought in a basket and to be loaded on the boat. What they weren't prepared for was an enormous snake. An enormous snake slithered down to the dock, and it was so majestic, and it was so intimidating and awesome in its appearance, the way that it flickered its tongue and that it hissed, that everyone sort of stepped away. They were absolutely frightened. But the snake went up the plank and down into the hold of the ship. And this snake was so enormous that it filled the entire hold of the ship. No one argued. They got on board the ship really quickly, and they set sail for Rome. The journey, thank heavens, was uneventful, and nobody really went downstairs to sort of check out how the snake was doing. But when they got to Rome, the snake looked up and peered around, and then it set its sights on the island of Tiber and indicated that that's where it wanted to go. And again, no one was going to argue with the god, with the enormity, with the glory of this god. And so they went to the island of Tiber, where the snake departed and went down into the foliage of the island itself. Immediately, people were brought to this island, which was outside but not too far away from Rome. And immediately they were cured. And so this is how the cult of Asclepius came to Rome. Like Asclepius, Bai was a highly skilled physician, and many people were cured. Many people came to her pharmacy to be cured of their different illnesses, and even patients. Patients who were unable to pay were given free treatment and medicine. The business flourished, and all was well, until one day a monk by the name of Fa Hai stopped Shushen on the street on his way to work. He told Shushen, the herbalist, that he could see through his wife's disguise. And did he know that he was married to a 1,000-year-old evil demon snake, and that she would do him harm? Now, Shushen didn't believe the Buddhist monk. He said, how could my wife be an evil demon snake? The idea is ridiculous. But Fa Hai said that he could prove it. And Shushen said, you can prove it. And he said, yes. What I'm going to do is meet you here the same time tomorrow. And what I want you to do is I want you to give her this bottle of wine I'm going to bring with me. It's a bottle of wine that's mixed with a special elixir that will dilute her evil supernatural powers. What I want you to do is that I want you to get her drunk on the day of the Dragon Boat Festival. Get her drunk, and you will see for yourself that she is an evil demon snake. And so Shushen did exactly what the Buddhist monk said to do. He was visiting with Bai. They were enjoying the dragon festival that was going on. He was pouring her wine. She said, oh, I don't need any more wine. And he's like, oh, here, have some more wine. And so she drank more and more wine, and she got completely inebriated. And she said, you have to excuse me. You have to excuse me for a moment. And she went into their bedroom to lie down and fell into a very deep sleep. So Shushen gave her some time to sleep and said, okay, well, I'm going to prove to myself that that Buddhist monk is crazy and that I'm going to come in and see Bai sleeping peacefully. And so Shushen went into the bedroom, and what he saw on the bed, draped over the bed and around the room, was an enormous snake, an enormous white snake, larger than a person could be, larger than 5 people could possibly be. And he was so in shock and so frightened that he died right there on the spot. The following day, Bai, now having regained her human form, woke up and discovered the corpse of her husband. She shouted out in horror, and despairing, she turned to her sister Xiaoxian, who agreed to accompany her on a dangerous journey to the Kunlun Mountains. Now, the Kunlun Mountains in China are very sacred, and you may even know of them because if you're familiar with the term Shangri-La, which is from a novel called The Lost Horizon, Shangri-La was a place tucked in the Kunlun Mountains where there was a valley of the immortals, where people could live for hundreds and hundreds of years. So these are the mountains that Bai and Xiaoxian are heading to. And they're running there to retrieve an herb that would bring Shushen back to life. There they engage in a ferocious battle of martial arts with the supernatural guardians of this very special herb. And things are very close. You know, the sisters almost lose, but they prevail because they're on a mission and they're committed. And maybe they might just have had better martial arts training than the guardian spirits did. But anyway, they bring back this herb and they revive Shushen. He comes back from the dead. However, Bai had also violated a sacred rule that no spirit snake must ever violate, and that is to bring back to life someone who had died. But that wasn't uppermost on Bai's mind. All she was thinking about was her happy reunion with her husband, who was now alive and well. Now, unfortunately, Fa Hai continued to plague their lives. This time, he kidnapped Shushen and imprisoned him in a monastery. He told Shushen that his marriage to the white snake was a perversion, that it was an abomination, and that he should divorce her immediately. Shushen, wavering in his love for Bai, agrees to become a monk. He agrees to repent and to become a monk. Meanwhile, outside the monastery where Shushen is being imprisoned, Bai, now pregnant with child, and her sister Xiaoxian appear at the monastery gates. They plead with Fa Hai to let Shushen go, but he refuses. He says no. He will not allow this abomination, this love between the species to continue. And so when he wouldn't release Shushen, Bai pulls a hairpin out of her hair, which transforms into an enormous red flag that waves in the wind. And that summons an army of shrimp and crab soldiers who threaten to flood the monastery. Bai and Fa Hai engage in a terrific battle, because Fa Hai himself is also a magician, a sorcerer. He has magic. He takes off his cloak and he sets up a wall, a barrier that the shrimp and crab soldiers have a hard time breaking through. And so this enormous battle takes place between Bai and Fa Hai. But because Bai is pregnant, she is not up to the task. She is weak. And also she feels a pain in her belly and becomes immediately worried that she's imperiling her child. And so she then commands Xiaoxian to withdraw the army. Xiaoxian doesn't want to withdraw the army. She wants to take the monastery, but Bai commands her to do that, and Xiaoxian has to obey. Defeated and exhausted, the sisters return to the broken bridge beside the very willow tree where they had first met Shushen, and are completely surprised to find Shushen there waiting for them. Shushen tells them that during the chaos, he had escaped the monastery through a back door and fled to the willow tree in hopes of seeing Bai again. And so once again, the two lovers, the man and wife, are reunited, and it's a happy moment. Shushen begs Bai for her forgiveness, that he had wavered, that he had felt like he had to repent and to become a monk. And that's when Xiaoxian takes out her sword. Xiaoxian takes out her sword. She's having nothing of it. Xiaoxian calls Shushen a wimp, a nuisance, that all he's been is a drag on them ever since that they have met, and that he doesn't deserve Bai's love. And she's going to put him to death right there on the spot because he's just such a pain in the derriere. Bai, of course, stops Shushen and tells her to lower her sword, and Shushen obeys. Bai also confesses to Shushen that she lied to him, that she deceived him about being a snake spirit. and that she was a snake spirit in human form. And that's on her. She's the one who had deceived him. So she's also asking him forgiveness as well. And she's also asking Shushan if he loves her. And Shushan, well, he has to sort of wrap his mind around that drunken snake that he saw in the bedroom that caused him so much fright that he died right there on the spot. He sort of has to get through his PTSD, moment there. But his heart is open and his soul is full, and he can't help but love Bai, and he agrees. He agrees to be with her. He reassures her that he wants her as his wife, that he is her husband, and that he is looking forward to raising their child together. All of this while Xiao Xian is rolling her eyes and like, I can't believe you're taking back this loser off in the corner. Bai soon gives birth to a baby boy whose name is Xu Mengzhao, which means boy who dreams of water dragons. However, the couple's happy life is interrupted yet again by that Buddhist monk Fa Hai, who tracks them down to their new home. He manages to capture Bai using a magical golden bowl. He imprisons Bai beneath the Laifeng Pagoda, which means Thunder Peak Tower. Xiao Xian escapes and vows to free her sister. While heartbroken by the loss of his wife, Shushan vows to raise his son by himself. Xiao Xian spends the next few years improving her magical skills, improving her martial arts combat techniques before she decides to rescue Bai. And when Xiao Xiao does, she defeats Fao Hai. She burns down the pagoda, breaks the golden bowl, and frees her sister. With this, the two sisters have fulfilled their destiny on Earth, and they become immortals. Well, that's one ending of the story. Another ending of the story is that Shushan becomes a monk and dies of heartbreak. He goes to the pagoda every day and sweeps the grounds in front of it, waiting for Bai to reemerge. She never does, and he dies of heartbreak. Still another ending has Shushan spending decades trying to free Bai, but dying of old age because he's mortal and she's immortal. While still another ending of the story has their son, Xu Mengzhao, becoming a top scholar and rescuing his mother, enabling the family to finally reunite. Now, like I said before, there are different versions of this story. There are different endings to this story, almost as many as there are regions in China itself. It is such a beloved folk tale. What I find fascinating, though, is a parallel to the myth of Asclepius. As I was saying before, the totem animal of Asclepius is a snake. He's a healer. He's a very successful healer. He cures this plague in Rome. And he's famous. He's famous throughout the Mediterranean world. People come from all over to seek the cures and the remedies of Asclepius. Asclepius is such a powerful healer that at one point he starts raising the dead. All right, that people who have died, he comes and he administers to them and he brings them back to life. And this outrages Pluto, who is the god of the dead, named after Hades in Greek mythology, but his name is Pluto in Roman mythology. He is the god of the dead. That's his realm. You don't mess around with the dead. And so Asclepius has trespassed. He's transgressed. He's crossed over from the boundary of the living to the dead, and he is now bringing dead people back to life. And Pluto is anxious that he'll lose his population, that the world will be thrown into chaos, and he sends word to Jupiter, his brother, via Hermes the messenger, to do something about this kid, because this has got to come to an end. Likewise, Bai has also trespassed. By bringing back the sacred herb that raises Shushan from the dead, that brings him back to life, she has transgressed. And this is probably why the monk has this power over her to imprison her. And of course, he imprisons her beneath this tower. He imprisons her in the underworld. What happens to Asclepius is that Pluto says, listen, Jupiter, you've got to do something about Apollo's kid, because this is screwing up the rules of nature. This is screwing up the rules of the cosmos. And Jupiter, being Jupiter, the god of thunder and lightning, immediately hurls a thunderbolt and takes out Asclepius. He kills him instantly on the spot. And Asclepius' soul descends down into the underworld. So it's fascinating. We have these two descents, by being imprisoned underneath the pagoda, in an underworld place, and Asclepius being killed because he's too successful a healer. That's not a good thing. He would throw the balance of nature off balance, and so he must die. And Asclepius himself journeys to the underworld and must genuflect, like all, to the supremacy of Pluto, Lord of the dead. So how is this going to impact the year that we're all living? We're all living in the year of the snake. I think what we may experience are some of those characteristics that I was talking about earlier, these wild swings between the sacred and the profane, between the pious life and the hedonistic one. We may experience them in our own lives, or we may experience them in the world around us. There is an absolute piety to the two snake sisters at the beginning of the story when they're told by the mother goddess, when the white snake, when Bai is told by the mother goddess, you have a destiny that's yet to be fulfilled in the world. You need to go and do this in order to bring to a close your pursuit of enlightenment, in order to make yourself ready for that next big step into enlightenment. And certainly a lot of what we're experiencing in the world these days is this pendulum swing between the high and the low, between forces of light and darkness. Who's on the light side, who's on the dark side is subjective, but there's this, everyone's convinced that they're on the right side, but this wild pendulum swing that's going on, and this feeling that we have to get it right. This feeling that in order for the planet to survive or for society to flourish, we have to get it right, and we have to get it right now. These are very reminiscent of attributes that people born in the year of the snake have, that the karma is acting right now. This is the point where I pay my dues. This is the point where I figure it all out. So there may be that purpose, that urgency, that intensity that is filling our lives, that's pushing us forward into this year. But our actions need to be informed, and our actions need to be accountable. These are two other ideas that I would like to sort of bring up from the story. Bai lies. Okay, she deceives her husband Shushen. Okay, she doesn't tell him the truth. Okay, there's a secret that she's carrying, that she's really a snake spirit, and that when the truth is revealed, he dies promptly on the spot. So there's this idea that truths can be lethal if they're withheld. Now, everyone knows the value of a secret. There are some things that we want to keep private, maybe because we're ashamed or embarrassed, or we want to keep private because it's our own business and nobody else's, or we want to keep private out of concern of hurting someone else, or we want to keep private because we don't trust what the other person's reaction might be. These are certainly things that are going through Bai's mind. She is hopeful that by doing good acts, that she is curing and healing people, she's doing it for free, that she can live this life on the mortal plane. Her interpretation clearly of the mother goddess was to live life on the mortal plane. She's come back from 1,000 years to find the reincarnation of the boy who had found her. But was that why the mother spirit brought her back into the world? There's evidence that that wasn't it, that the reason to come back into the world was almost maybe to shed this, to shed this love, to shed this longing. Perhaps the great temptation for Bai was meeting Shushen and recognizing in him someone who had saved her life. I mean, these are two snake spirits on the threshold of enlightenment. They shouldn't be getting dragged back down into things of the mortal realm. What they should also be doing is not breaking the rules of the mortal realm. And the rules of the mortal realm is anyone who's born into this world is going to die, and that should be let to happen. You don't intervene. You don't stop that. If you do that, then you throw nature out of whack. You throw nature out of balance. And so, some explanation, what might serve as an explanation for, in one of the versions, in one of the endings of the story, of Bai being imprisoned, of her being silenced underneath this pavilion, why the Buddhist priest is triumphant in a way, is because she has transgressed. The transgression isn't cross-species love, the transgression is that she had brought her lover back to life. And that's a big no-no in all world mythologies. So what's kind of going on there is also this question of like, there's a feeling of urgency and purpose to life. The fate of the planet is at stake. The fate of our civilization is at stake. We need to make right decisions. But these decisions cannot be made from past patterns. These decisions cannot be made based on, old beliefs, superstitions, or fears or anxieties. The Buddhist monk has some very questionable ideas of love, and he's the one who's calling their love a perversion when it's seen as love is love, when it's seen as being very beautiful. The reason this folktale has endured for so many centuries is because it's the celebration of a star-crossed love, which is trying to find its way back to one another again. And again, as I said, this is not going with what you do when you're on the verge of enlightenment, and this is not going with perhaps some of the rules or the laws or the doctrine of Buddhism, or at least as it's being practiced. So there's a sort of outlaw sense that's going on with Bai, and the necessity of being an outlaw, and an appeal of the outlaw, that we're rooting for love. We're rooting for the snake spirit who sacrifices herself, who is so loving and who is so giving, and wants to be reunited with her great love, Shushen. So these are very powerful questions, and these are powerful themes. And then this idea finally of sloughing off of the old skin. How do we slough off the old skin? Do we, shake it off and say, I don't know, do we shake it off and say, this is the new me and that's not who I was anymore? No, you can't do that. You come from a past, you come from a history. So how do you slough off the old skin? How do you let go of the old things that are toxic, that are poisonous, that are retrograde, that are holding us back? How do we deal with these prejudices and these anxieties and these fears that provide such a backdrop to the story as well? I mean, why is the snake seen as obscene? Because it's reptilian, it's evil, it's alien, it's so unknown, and it's not, it's not seen as a loving creature. And in fact, in this story, the serpent is a loving creature. The serpent is actually more virtuous than the man of God or the man of Buddha, and more virtuous than the people who are pious are being. And so that's another insight that we can take from this story of like, do we believe the doctrines? Do we believe, what's deciding what's good and what's bad? Or do we question it? Is it something, if it brings harm, if it's seen if it's seen as labeling things as evil, is it something that we see as detrimental and something that we see as bad? The character of people born in the year of the snake, as I said before, they can experience those extremes, and there's this feeling that their life is, this is the time when I get it right. But there's also a benevolence. There's also a very deep feeling. It may not come across right away. They may appear cold and unfeeling. They may appear reptilian and alien. We may demonize them. But, it puts me back in mind of that Asclepian axiom, the wounder heals. Just like a doctor has to puncture or to cut or to administer a medicine that may bring someone to the brink where they're hovering between life and death, the person who wounds, who harms, is also healing. And it's not like I'm going to wound and then heal. It's wounding is involved in the cycle of healing. And we may say, well, why is wounding involved in the cycle of healing? Why don't we just not get wounded, But wounding is involved in the cycle of healing. When you think of your heart, for instance, if our heart has never been broken, our capacity to love is limited. We don't know what it's like, what heartbreak is like. We don't know what sadness is like, what grief is like, what fury and anger is like. We live almost in this Edenic, this Garden of Eden of an unbroken heart. And so when the heart is broken, and it can be broken for a variety of reasons and for multiple times in our life, do we go down the road into heartbreak and jadedism, being jaded and rejecting and unloving and spiteful and vengeful? Or does our heart deepen as a result of heartbreak? Does our heart deepen? Does it become profound? Does it become more loving? Do we see in the tragedy of other people, something that we would never countenance in our own lives? And how can we countenance watching this? We want to rescue these people. We want to help these people. So these are the themes and the ideas that are brought up by this story of Bai and Shushen and her marvelous sister Xiaoxian, who, as you can tell, I absolutely adore. Okay, so what I want you to think of going into 2025, the year of the snake, is sloughing off the old skin of understanding what it's like to withhold information and to ask yourself, why am I withholding this information? To look beyond the labels that people have. The virtuous might not be so virtuous, the bad might not be so bad. To look beyond that and to really let your heart and your conscience be your guide, because ultimately it's more than sloughing off the skin and transformation. Ultimately, it's about enlightenment. And perhaps that is a theme that we could all benefit from by entering the year of the snake.